Small Talk, Big Ideas, where brilliant minds bring insights and inspiration to solve some of today's most pressing issues. I'm your host, Charmel Galden, CEO and President of Foundation for Louisiana. Good afternoon. Today we have the pleasure of talking with Thelma French. She is an educator, a leader, a philanthropist, someone who has been a stalwart in our community, both making sure folks have the resources they need, not just to survive, but also to thrive and flourish in our city. Thelma, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So I'd love it if you could talk to us a little bit about your background and your history. We both grew up as children of educators, particularly spending time on HBCU campuses. And so I know that has been a critical part of your development. But can you tell us a little bit about who Thelma French is?
Well, I think I've had twice today to be able to say I've had many titles and many affiliations. I began my professional career as a college professor in a very unique initiative called the 8 College Curriculum, designed to reduce the attrition rate among Black college freshmen in HBCUs. And that gave me a totally different perspective of higher education. It was a different type of teaching model, a different engagement. And from that opportunity, I think I went on to serve as the director of the governor's internship under then Governor Dave Treen. That was really an exciting opportunity because even though Dave Treen was a Republican governor, he idolized Jimmy Carter and the work that Jimmy Carter had done in Georgia, particularly in getting African-American students experiences in higher level positions in state government. And so that was what the student internship program was about. And I think that shaped, hopefully, a lot of my approaches to building young people and professional experiences and what a high quality professional experience in public service looks like. I then worked in direct service delivery at Covenant House, New Orleans. I tell the story that I came with the bricks. I was one of the original staff people there. And in my 5 years there, I had 5 different job titles. So I started as a case manager, went on to be the director of Rites of Passage, and went on to finally be the director of grants and opportunities before leaving to join then State Senator Mark Morial's staff, working in his nonprofit community-based organization, and then moving on into City Hall with then Mayor Mark Morial. So it's been quite a trajectory. Then I decided I had to go back to education, and I was the director of board operations and family engagement for the Orleans Parish School Board through the Katrina era and post-Katrina era early, and came home. I came back to Total Community Action, where I had served as a board member for 9 years representing the mayor, and have been here now 15 years, beginning ready to transition to the next career called retirement.
We don't believe it. One, we don't believe you're going to retire. We know that you will always be in service because you exemplify what it means to be a public servant and a servant leader. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you learned how to be a servant leader?
I think that, I thought about this the other day as I am dealing with the passage of one of my mentors, the late William Bill Roussel Jr. And I think I had some of the best mentor coaches and supervisors in life who always gave me to seek higher and put that wind beneath my wings, that when I tried, even when I had some setbacks, they would always say, you can do it. And it is a phenomenal thing when you know that somebody has that wind beneath your wing. And so I've been truly, truly blessed to have those individuals in my life and to try to model that type of support for others, that, no matter what the question is, there's no wrong answer. They will give you options and help you to make the decision which option to take. And so I think that that has been truly what has kept me focused and hopefully helped me to mentor and support the people who have come in my path.
You right now are serving as the wind beneath a lot of people's wings, and also a spoke in this larger wheel of support in our community. TCA is an incredible partner, and to me, it's moved far beyond what folks might think about when they think of this type of agency. And so you have spearheaded work within the criminal justice system, spearheaded work for food access and justice, reentry, all types of things and services and support that our community needs. How'd you do it? Because usually folks stay in one lane and that's all they can move in.
Well, I think that the mission of community action, the challenge of the Office of Economic Opportunity, which significantly all happened 60 years ago, from voting rights to the Office of Economic Opportunity, which was the Great Society, was to reduce the barriers from the beginning that keep people marginalized and to reduce poverty. And so our approach to it is whatever is in the way, not just the traditional assistance with utilities or providing early childhood education, high quality Head Start, but really looking at what are the barriers in our community that challenge economic mobility and equity, and then how can we be a part? In every instance, it did not require funding. In a lot of instances, it required, I think, the gathering of the voices and strategic alignments and partnerships. And I think that's one of the pieces that I'm proudest of, is building partnerships and coming up with creative solutions where everyone can share, what we can do. That gets a lot further than one person trying to do it by themselves. So I think that if we are going to really reduce poverty in this community, it is going to have to be a collective impact. And I've grown a lot. I call myself a continuous learner, because every opportunity we have to be in a community or practice, to be around phenomenal young people like yourself, I learned something from you. And so whereas I may have fought some battles and been in some really tight places in life, I've also had mentors who have allowed me to have all types of experiences, from even studying workforce in Denmark. When four former, I don't know, I must have a thing that I might get in trouble for saying that old white men really take to me. But when four former secretaries of labor, I got to meet them, they invited me to come and speak to the Council of Workforce in New England. And I was like, wow, and so just those opportunities. And Mark would always say, hey, Ms. French, take it. They invite you, go, and so I encourage everybody, when the opportunity comes, take advantage of it. You never know when you need to fall back on that learning or that experience or even that connectivity. And so that is truly, I think, the part about leadership it's not always just your vision. It is actually looking at the needs in your community, looking at who else is out there working in that area, and then having that collective vision of how we get there. And that's a change in our community, because I can remember when organizations, even when I was working at Covenant House, organizations stayed in their lane. But staying in your lane doesn't always solve all of the problems that you're dealing with. So being able to be a real partner, being collaborative, has really helped us to take TCA to another level. My proudest statement is that we are a trusted voice in community. Community trusts us. And so if we need to get some word out to community, it's not always we're looking for something that they know that they can come in. If we don't know the answer, we'll go find it for you.
That is really incredible, to be that trusted voice and to be in partnership with community in that way. It's something that when I first got introduced to you, I really noticed how you were able to convene folks, create space for lots of different people to participate. And sometimes that looked like holding the space, right? And
Right.
sometimes it looked like being the person who could bring all the voices in. And so I really appreciate you sharing that need for our community in this moment.
Yes, it right now the work that we're doing with Safety and Justice Challenge is a new opportunity for us to just be the space and to make sure that voices, one, that all sides of the conversation is just to watch that very mixed group of young people, from those who are FIPs to those who are very young and idealistic and think that they have solutions to everything, to the elders of mixed experiences in one room. And I've just been so empowered by them. I think this is probably one of the greatest experiences I've had in life. And that has nothing to do with the other side of the table. It's just being in that room with them. And we actually introduced a new model that we received, not a real new model, a new approach to community engagement. We did SOAR with them, and they enjoyed it. And they were like, where did you pick this up? And I said, y'all got to know, wherever we go somewhere, I got to bring something back. And we used SOAR with the Public Safety Summit, and the Agents of Change were the facilitators, and they got some serious work done. And that to me is truly our role. That's what we're here for, not to be the one convening everything, but just to empower community to make decisions for itself.
Oh, so you are speaking our love language at the foundation. We think a lot about how do we make sure that people are at the seat of decision making. It's why we engage in participatory grant making. It's why we engage in leadership development, because ultimately all philanthropy is other people's money. And typically
Right.
in our community, it's wealth that has not accrued to Black people, right?
Right.
So we think it is most fitting that those folks are able to make decisions about where funding flows. When you think about New Orleans in the next 20 years, because we're coming close to the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina next year, what do the next 20 years look like for you?
As you spoke of that question, my mind went to Betsy.
Hmm.
I'm gonna bring this analogy. I was a young woman. I was going to say I was a little girl, but I was a little girl. Camille hit on my 9th birthday, so I'll never forget that because the tree came down in the bedroom. But when I think about Betsy, and I was in the 9th grade at Betsy, and then 20 years, then 40 years, then 50 years, and then to watch the same communities to be destroyed in Katrina. How do we build a resilient community? How do we really talk about resilience and still keep our culture and our lifestyles? And when I say our lifestyles, the collective lifestyle of New Orleans, the gatherings, the social impacts of just people. I would hope that 20 years from now, we will have worked out how to live with our environment, and that we have built infrastructures in our most vulnerable communities, because we're not going to be able to get above sea level unless, the Lord would have to change earth for us to get above sea level, but that we have prioritized those things to the level that we prioritize preparing for a Super Bowl.
Hmm.
When we decide that the people who live here permanently are as important as the people who are going to come here for 1 week, and that those investments need to be sustainable, and yet people need to be invested in also. So 20 years from now, I would love a city that puts its people's survival in their space as the number one priority. And how do we begin to really focus on that is, I think, what I would love to see to be the focus of the 20-year memorial of Katrina. Where are we 20 years from where we were Well, we 10 years from where we were 10 years ago. And that has really come to light. I was in San Francisco at the 10th anniversary of Katrina at a National Community Action Conference, and I flew back to be on a panel. And everything we were talking about that day, we're still talking about right now, which is access to livable wage jobs, which is quality of education and choice, true choice. You know, we get caught up in, I don't want to say people, not even ideologies, but we haven't got caught up in the people. And when we put our people first, and truly, this is a tourism-based city, and we have to continue to have tourists, but we've also got to build the infrastructure of this city. It cannot be the second thought of anything. And for me, infrastructure of the city starts with the people in this city. A state with a $7.25 minimum wage, a state with the highest, I just learned this during the convening, senior food insecurity, a state with that we want 1, 2, or 3 for the highest child poverty. You know, those are the things we've got to invert. There, you know, those are the things that will make us sustainable, and those are the things that I just was at another conversation, and people talked about us losing our young people, and they all don't want to leave. A lot of them stay home, but they cannot make it at home. And how do we continue our growth if we can't get our young people to stay and reinvest in this community? So those are just some of my thoughts that should be the real questions we ask at the 20th Memorial. What will New Orleans look like 10 years from now? What do we need to do to make New Orleans look like that? And how do we hold people accountable? We say we really trust the vote. Well, we know we didn't trust the vote because we didn't vote in this last gubernatorial election. But we've got to get out of personality. And while I love personalities, I got to hold people accountable. When you take that oath of office and you represent the people, whatever it takes, I need you to take it to make sure that we're moving in a collective direction. We've got to have that. And I think the only way that's going to happen is from community. It's not going to be led by an elected official. Community is going to have to set what it is it wants and hold people accountable. And we've got to trust each other enough again to get to that point.
Hmm. So those are some really powerful words. This piece around people being the core infrastructure of our city. We talk a lot about the heart and the culture and culture bearers and people, but I've never heard it quite phrased that way. And it calls the question about how we prioritize making sure those folks have what they need to thrive. And so this other piece around accountability that you lifted up is critically important. And this line within community and communities saying and holding people accountable. When you think about what community might need to get there, what are some things that philanthropy can do in particular to support community?
Well, and of course, this is not a paid announcement, but the work that FFL has done in some of those communities that I know of who are working to organize themselves around specific issues around their rebirth, their rebuilding, we have to start younger. I was speaking to some young people the other day, and I found out that civics is not a required course anymore, and that the only time that they actually talk about social engagement or civic engagement may be in a youth group or in some program, but it is not something that's coming out to schools. I don't even see student councils to the level that I used to see, where I saw young leadership and so I'm a big fan. I'm not a fan. I'm an advocate of Children's Defense Fund. I'm bought, sold, and my spirit is happy at the farm. And I remember I can look at years that I've sent a busload of young people I didn't go myself, but I could send high school and college students to go and get that leadership development and that training. And now when I see them, I have to praise this. One of them has received his doctorate, who I started out as a junior at Warren Easton, and he has his PhD now. And he went to the farm. I told him, I said, I think you've been almost as much as Ms. Elderman. But he went every year. And I remember one year I was saying to the guys, well, I really want y'all to meet this young man. And I called him by a title. And it was like, Burnett, you know him? And I was like, yeah, but that's that opportunity. And so how do we recreate those types of opportunities? Because they don't exist in this choice, whatever, this system that we have now called education. Secondly, our social infrastructures have changed. Virtual church, there's not the church leadership groups, but then in our communities, a lot of people are afraid of our young people, and we've got to get rid of. They are our future. I truly believe they're our future, and so whatever we can do. And I did say I was retiring, but I didn't say I was going to stop working. I just want to always help young people grow to their fullest potential, because there won't be a New Orleans if it's just us still sitting here. And there won't be any African-American leadership if it's just us still sitting here. We can look like something totally different. And so I really think that philanthropy, while I try to teach this, philanthropy's purpose is to seed a growth. It is not to sustain the growth. And if we take full advantage and not think of it as a recurring fund, then we will maximize whatever that seed is to its fullest potential. And it should regenerate itself. And that's the approach. I remember when I first got here and I had all these young, powerful friends who are in philanthropy, and they would come by and talk and everything. And someone at TCA said, well, where has all this been all this time? And I was like, you all were too content within the box of the federal funding, but you don't make social change in the box of federal funding. The social change that we're called to create sometimes requires just sweat equity, and sometimes it requires the seed. And so I think that the seeding, and I'm really proud of the parent work that is being done now, because our parents truly need empowerment. They need to understand their rights. I just had a conversation with a colleague of mine, and she said, what happened to the Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Education? They must be asleep, because our children with special needs their needs are not being met. And I thought about it. The three organizations in this community that used to advocate for parents and empower parents with children with special needs are no longer exist, because they didn't have the next generation. When those original founders passed on, retired, those organizations ceased to exist. So there's not any champions out there right now that I can refer a mom to that really needs some legal assistance. Mm-hmm. So I think that's our charge. We've got to stop worrying about us and build that back end. And if philanthropy can help us build that back end, help us to develop the young set of leaders to come in, the leadership develop. I go back to where I started when I said the governor's student internship. So I'm gonna make you laugh. One of my interns, and you're really gonna laugh, is the former Judge Harry Cantrell. Now, Judge Harry Cantrell and I are the same age, okay? But he had left a career as a college professor and decided to come to Southern University Law School. And in the law school, he applied for the student internship, and I was able to put him in the Attorney General's office. And so another one of my interns, Ms. Pamela Louise Shaw, is the only Black female registered lobbyist in the states of Louisiana and Mississippi. And she will say she ran her brother for the state Senate. He didn't run, she ran him. And he is the longest tenured state senator right now in Mississippi. But it was the opportunities. And she went on to do some stuff in philanthropy and went on to do some. It was just a seed. And we've got to seed our young people.
Hmm. So thank you so much for laying this out. We often forget what it means to invest in young people, and that being a chief form of philanthropy. You've just exemplified why it's important, why it's critical in this moment, and what we need to do for our future. And so I want to thank you for that. I also just want to take a moment because one of the things that I think our culture doesn't do as well as it should is giving folks their praise and their flowers. And Thelma, you have been such an anchor in this community. You have shepherded thousands of folks, young and old, to opportunity. And I don't know if you often recognize how big of an impact that you've had, how much people talk about the time in which you led them and served with them and what it means, and how that translates into your legacy. There's so many people who would say, but for you, they couldn't imagine where they would be. And I just want you to sit with that for a moment because we don't often talk about what that looks like. And you named in our conversation alone 6 different people who got impacted. And I'm telling you, the numbers are thousandfold. There are folks who just talk about you and share how strategic and important you are to work in rooms that you're not in. And I want you to hear that folks value you. They find you to be a chief strategist and someone who's always pushing us to do more and be better. And I want to thank you for that.
Oh, that is so powerful. And I'm so humbled and grateful. I have taken a piece of scripture that I said that describes how I feel about life. And that is, to whom much is given, much is required. And I have truly been blessed to be put in spaces where people invested in me. And therefore, it is a requirement that I should return that investment. People have believed in me and given me opportunities. And I think that's all I need to give back is I have to pay back for which was invested in me. As I said, Shamel, this has been a difficult day. This morning, I followed my last direction from William Bill Roussel, who decided in his writing of his transition that we could not have a funeral, that we would have to have a memorial service. And he went on as far as to tell me what I had to talk about. And so only Bill Roussel could do that to me. And so he said, I want you all can't talk about anything but democracy. And I'm like, democracy? And he said, because at this time in this space in my life, the most important thing is protecting democracy. And for me, it is protecting opportunity, protecting the opportunity to be able to give and share and to give back and to have people like a Bill in my life, to have a James Singleton in my life, a Mark Morial in my life, but then to have the youngsters from you, Flozell, Craig, James. I mean, when I used to do GVRS, the call-in, I would say I have 55 sons. I only gave birth to one, but I have 55. And if I'm ever in trouble, I know if I called any one of the 55, they will be there. And that is a living legacy that I treasure and respect so much. And so I appreciate you, and I'm humbled for that attestation and that gratitude. But I truly believe that I owe it. I owe it all because I have been truly blessed. I couldn't imagine having this much fun on any job in life. I really can't. I might be I know I have a whole bunch of other names, but I can be a tyrant. I can be all of those, but I always have had fun. And the people around me, and they have some stories that they tell that sometimes I wish they wouldn't tell, like that slept on the floor and doing a grant and all of that. But right after it was over, we were all having so much fun. And so just the success of collective work not one person, it was the collective. And I think that that's the one thing I want to share, that it's the collective that accomplishes, not Thelma, not Flozell, not Glennis. It's the collective. And when we all collectively bring our skills to the table, the last thing I want to share is something I want us to let go of. We were in a session just last Thursday, looking at another model of community engagement, particularly something, the Omaha 360 model by the African American community. And someone brought up something that is what I consider one of the most negative things we do in this community, and that's the meeting after the meeting. And, I said I got in trouble when I was a political appointee about talking about the meeting after the meeting. And I say, if you can't say it in the meeting, don't call me when I get out the door and have the meeting after the meeting. If we can't say it in the meeting, we don't need to talk about it. So I think I attested that I was the elder in the room. And so at the end, they said, well, Ms. French, what do you want to say? I said, the one thing I want to say, if you're going to have the meeting after this meeting, if you can't say anything good, don't say anything at all. Because that is how we keep ourselves down. We do not allow our collective power, because everybody's scared to say something that it may be taken out of context. There's no trust. And we got to be able to trust. So what I think, when I come back to something you asked me, what philanthropy can teach and can support that collective trust again, building collective trust. I'm happy to hear that Godolphin is back on its feet, and that I was so proud of the work, because, and I shared that I look forward to the convening, because I learned something at every convening. It wasn't always about going there to get a grant. It was about, what can I learn from some other group or some other community? And so I think it was a model that you all should propel nationally, because there were collective goals and measurable outcomes and people sharing resources, and that really made us stronger. And I think that as we look to celebrate the 20th, that is the one thing I was excited to hear, that Godolphin is beginning to convene again. And as the local state foundation, if you all took the lead, I would be so excited, because you're here. And get in trouble again. I don't need 15 TAs from all over the country driving me nuts again. I'm sorry. I'm working with this one philanthropy group that I really like, right after I beat up the national program officer on the national stage about 10 years ago. But she and I are good friends now, because she walked on New Orleans. Mm-hmm. She walked on New Orleans because something we did. Some of our elected officials are not easy to work with, but I felt you shouldn't have walked on the whole community because of one group of elected officials. So I called her out on it. We were it was supposed to be a conversation at a national meeting, and we turned it into a conversation between the two of us. So now we have always been good friends. I'll never let her forget that she walked on New Orleans. She helped the rest of the state and said, forget New Orleans. But they have too many TAs. They have TA to the TA, and I can't get any work done for talking to the TA to the TA. And so last week I just said, just send them all down at one time, and we'll spend an hour with each one of them. And I think why I bring that example, someone like you can have that conversation and broker with your colleagues. This doesn't work in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's our role. Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't. If I spend all my time and then each TA wants to know what the other TA is doing, I don't have time for that. So as I praise the work that you all are still here, I am excited that Godolphin is coming back, but I want you to teach them how to work with us.
I will. That's philanthropic leadership. We hear from our people, what is it that you need? How can we support, and how can we get out of the way? And mostly it's about getting out of the way and making sure those resources are available.
Yeah, and accountability is not a problem. I love being accountable, but I really don't have time to have to play that game, and I understand that. So I make a joke that when I retire, I'm going to be a TA for that foundation because they like TAs, So, but this is interesting. I'm really honored. I have had just a day today. I started this morning, as I said, trying to talk about educational democracy. And now to have this opportunity just to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for being a part of this journey and watching you grow and move and know what spaces to move in and out of. I am so proud of that. And because you knew when to make that move. And I'm really excited about that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation. I just want to make sure we have room for anything else that you wanted to add or share with anyone.
The last comment I would make is that we have to give our young professionals opportunity. We've got to know that they're not going to come as a finished package. None of us were a finished package. And we have to give them the opportunity. And then we have to know when to mentor and when to step away. And it is, as I look at the evolution of the institutions in this area and in this state, particularly the nonprofit institutions, transition is often hard. And sustainability should not be tied to an individual. It should be tied to a mission and the work. And so that is probably the greatest wish or desire I have as we move to this next decade, is that we begin to give young people opportunities. I had opportunities very young. I did not just wake up one day. Actually, I can honestly say I started my leadership development training at 13 years old, thanks to the Prince Hall Masons, because they invested in youth leadership and they used to rent a camp before they built one where they taught leadership. And growing up through that system, I learned how to conduct a meeting. I learned, and there were a lot of opportunities. Of course, I was a Girl Scout and all of those things, but leadership development, when I was a freshman in college, I knew how to conduct a meeting. So we've got to start reinvesting and giving those opportunities again. And I think that while we've done a lot with community, or we've tried to do a lot with community, we've got to really do a lot with youth, because our youth are, their social media influences cannot be their only influences.
All right. Well, we hear you. Investing in young people. You are making me think about how we kick off our Young Philanthropist series. We have been having a conversation internally about how do we bridge that generational divide. And now I'm a bit fired up. So
yes.
Into that, maybe a young people giving circle where we make a match as adults to support them in their journey. But
I think that is phenomenal. They won't learn philanthropy if they don't get to experience it. They will not learn it. And often in this community, it was a perception that philanthropy didn't include us. And so to see you all, to be able to have conversations with you is phenomenal, because that was not something that was a reality for the group that's my group or the group directly behind me.
Yeah, I get to live in the privilege and community you all have created. And now I get to create a new community for young people. So thank you.
I appreciate that. All right. Thank you.